Nick Saban's gone viral. Some people are upset with him. Some people are proud of him. He has the college football world in a frenzy. Why? Let's take a look.
To put this in perspective, if you had the biggest, baddest Ferrari that you could ever have and it was going 150 miles an hour toward the Grand Canyon, somebody needs to tap the brakes. And I think that's what we all need to do here. First of all, I think student athletes should profit from name, image, and likeness as long as those things are authentic endorsements. They create branding for themselves. They sign with the company. They do promotions. I think these things are all healthy for their education as well as their quality of life. I think name, image, and likeness has become pay for play. But this is just the way it is. It's become an arm race. Who spends the most has got the best chance to win. But I think it's a race to the bottom because if you don't spend to win, you lose your fan base and you don't have any revenue. So how do you manage the other sports?
Stop it right there because listen, I believe everybody who's listening to this video, I honestly think that we all want what's best for college football. And we do agree that there are some things that could change. There are some tweaks that can be made. And maybe Nick Saban is right when he says that, hey, college football is moving and moving fast, and somebody needs to press the brakes. But when it's Nick Saban pressing my brakes, and I'm like, brother, you used to speed all the time back in the day. Why are you intervening now? I believe this is one of those, we agree on the message, maybe, but we definitely don't agree with who's saying it because Nick Saban is somebody who's benefited from the old model, allegedly. There has been podcasts and players and coaches talk about the under-the-table payment of SEC players, the backdoor payments of SEC players back in the day that helped the SEC, that helped build the reputation of the SEC, and that made the man that is speaking, that made him a lot of money. So what this looks like is Nick Saban, somebody who benefited for allegedly making super teams with under the table payments, and everything was going well. He was a great coach. Alabama ran through teams and everything. But then when NIL became something and you had to and you got to play the players got the transfer, Nick Saban said, I'm gone. And now he's trying to, and since the NIL, that now that everybody's paying players legally, the SEC is not winning championships. You got a former SEC coach that's saying we need to stop this now. It looks bad at who is saying this because you can't look past it. This is the man who, while he was on the draft, said that they went after the Toledo safety or the Toledo corner, but he had never entered the transfer portal. So how did you do that how did y'all try to get him? How did y'all communicate when you're not allowed to communicate with a player unless he's in the transfer portal? He let it slip. So no matter what Nick Saban says, when he's on this microphone saying you should cap payment, you shouldn't do this, it's going to be taken the wrong way. And another thing is I disagree when he says that you have there's a notion that whoever has the most money is going to win. Well, if you listen to On3, if you listen to the people, they keep throwing around that LSU spends a lot of money. Well, LSU just had to fire their coach and get another coach. And then you hear Texas Tech. They spend a lot of money. They can buy whoever and whatever they want. Well, they got beat. They didn't win a playoff game. Indiana won the national championship. Y'all mean to tell me Indiana is running things in the NIL? People need to stop using NIL as a cop-out for whether a team's doing good or not. Just because you got money don't mean you know how to properly use and invest the money. That's the bottom line. Let's continue to see what Nick has to say.
So the one thing that I think this bill does, sort of enhance the enforcement of the House settlement, which to me is a start, which sort of creates a revenue share, kind of a cap, and also controls some of the name, image, and likeness things that this bill tries to control. Unlimited.
You know what we need to control? Let's control what the coaches are making. I want y'all in the comments, since the offseason is hit, I have heard coaches whine about a lot of stuff. Here's a former coach whining about how NIL should be done. It should be capped. Players should make this much. Players should make that much. I've heard people talk about, should we go from 4 to 12 to 16 to 24 to 32 to 100 teams. I've heard coaches whine and cry about non-conference. I've heard coaches whine about transfer portal. I've heard coaches complain about agents. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to complain about them, but the one thing I don't hear them complaining about is how much these coaches are making. Wow. Why is that? Why is it that these coaches are making so much money, but nobody wants to talk about that? Why is it that these coaches can fail at their jobs, but you still got to pay them, and they're making all this buyout money? Is that not hindrance of the program? Would that not help other sports if you weren't paying Mike Norvell all this money? And sometimes they pay the coach an extension and he still leaves. Are we not talking about how a coach can recruit a player, then up and leave? Why is it that the players, they start making money and now we got people in courtrooms? Now we got coaches whining and complaining, it seems like 24/7. And maybe it's because we got more access to the coaches. Maybe we're hearing more of their grievances. But this offseason, I've yet to hear a coach say, maybe we should not pay us so much so we can invest in the roster. Maybe we shouldn't pay us so much so we can put the money elsewhere. I heard Kurt Signetti say this sports it's getting dangerous about the health of the sport because of how much money's being spent in roster. But I never hear how much these coaches are making or how much they make when they fail at their job. It's weird how that happens. But you're going to hear a lot about what these players make or shouldn't make. Here's my thing. If a player's good, pay him. You don't got to pay him, but pay him. If you don't think the player's worth it, don't pay him. If you got the money to pay him, pay him. You need to, the program is yours. Talking to the head coaches, talking to the GMs, talking to the athletic directors. You figure out what happens with that, and then you set your expectations. They don't talk about the coaches.
Transfers creates free agency. Free agency with a collective, now you're talking about bidding war for players. And then you've got...
What's wrong with that? Did Lane Kiffin not just have a bidding war with Ole Miss and LSU? Was that not a bidding war? A coach who has not won a national championship, a coach who has not won a college football playoffs, a coach who has not won the SEC, just had a bidding war for his services. And I didn't hear one coach. I heard people complaining about should he coach or shouldn't he coach. I heard people talking about him always in the media, but I didn't hear anybody talk about, do we think they're paying him too much? Do you think how much money does a coach really deserves? I don't be hearing about that. But soon as a player gets some money, oh, you best believe they're gonna talk about that.
Agents out there that are not certified, that are enhancing players or encouraging players to get in the portal, I can get you more money. So now we have this unbelievable number of players that get in a portal every year, and we have nothing to control agents. We have nothing to control tampering. You know, Clemson had a player that was on campus for a whole week, and they come and got him off the campus and took him someplace else. So these kinds of things going on in college football are absolutely not what any of us signed up for relative to the educational institutions that, you know, we've all tried to represent. My first year we had collective at Alabama, 2.7 million. Next year, 7 million. Next year, 10 million. I retired. Next year, 17 million. Next year, 24 million. Now you have schools that have close to $40 million rosters. So if we continue to do that.
Well, y'all kept going up and Alabama kept losing. So so your notion that because you got more money, you're going to win, you know, what's up? Right? Y'all went toe-to-toe with Indiana. Indiana destroyed you. With Indiana, how much they making it NIL? I don't know, but we got it's like I don't really know what the solution is, but when it's Nick Saban, you can't help but to discuss him. Maybe they should have had somebody else discussing these, because you automatically go from, you know, it sounds like sour grapes. This whole thing. And look, him talking about transfers, I do think the transfer is getting crazy. I do think they should limit transfers. But when you get to talking about paying players, man, these players, they bring in so much money to the organization. They bring in so much money to the campus. Can't you guys figure a way to budget around that? Can't you guys figure a way to budget? Okay, we're going to spend this much on football, this much on softball, this much on that. I mean, that's why these coaches and athletic directors are getting paid the big money, right? Right?
We're going to lose Olympic sports. We're going to lose non-revenue sports. We're going to lose scholarships. And basically what's going to happen is you're going to have football and basketball succeed, and we'll have club sports for everything else with no scholarships. That's horrible. I mean, we can't let that happen. And I think we have to continue to figure out ways that we can raise revenue so that we can keep all sports and all opportunities for all young people intact. I believe we want an education-based model that compensates athletes fairly, protects athletes properly, and still preserves development, competition, opportunity, and tradition. That is what this bill is trying to do. It isn't perfect, and I'm sure many, many adjustments need to be made, and I think there's a lot of people who can add to that. But this is a serious bipartisan effort to bring order to a system that is badly needs fixing.
Look, when it's all said and done, I do think there's some things that needs to be addressed. But this just looks, you know, when you have Nick Saban of all people up there, it's the wrong messenger. They needed somebody else besides Nick Saban. But some things that I do agree with them on, I think the transfer portal should be limited. I think agents, they need to delegate that, figure out how to keep it from just any and everybody can just become an agent. As I understand it, the agents are unregulated. But this sport doesn't happen without the players. So the players should get paid. The players shouldn't be capped. That's the bottom. That is my main thing. And if we're going to take money from anybody, maybe we need to cap how much these coaches are making. Because Nick Saban, he talked about how much NIL, the collective, kept going up, but did he talk about how much money he was making? Well, Grant, it's because they won. Bingo. So if a player is a good junior high player and he gets to be a dominant senior, and the school thinks that that player in high school can help them and they want to pay him, they should be able to do that. And then when he gets to college, if a school thinks that he deserves a pay raise for his talent, he should be able to do that. What do y'all think, man? I feel like I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but at the end of the day, pay the players. Pay the players. Grant is for the players. What do you guys think about this? What do you think about what Nick Saban said? What do you think about what I said? Let me know in the comments.